What if the most dangerous financial advice you ever received wasn't wrong, it was just perfectly timed to destroy you? Picture this. It is 2 in the morning, and you are sitting on your toilet, scrolling through your phone, and a guy you went to high school with, a guy who once failed a basic algebra test, is posting screenshots of his crypto portfolio. He is up 400%. His caption reads, "Life-changing money. Who is still sleeping on this?" And something in your chest tightens. Not because you are happy for him. No, because a voice in the back of your skull starts whispering, "You are falling behind." That whisper has a name. Wall Street gave it a clinical label decades ago, but on the streets, we just call it what it is. Fear. The fear of missing out. And that fear, that tiny little splinter in your mind, has transferred more wealth from ordinary people to the already rich than any bank heist, any Ponzi scheme, any tax loophole in the history of modern finance. This is not a story about cryptocurrency. This is not a story about meme stocks or real estate flips or whatever the hot thing is this week. This is a story about a psychological weapon, one that was engineered, sharpened, and deployed against you before you were even born. And the twist, the part they really do not want you to figure out, is that the single most profitable financial move most people will ever make is simply refusing to play, logging off, going dark, being completely, blissfully, strategically out of the loop. Let me tell you about a man named Roger Babson. Most people have never heard of him, and that is by design. In the summer of 1929, America was drunk. Not on booze, prohibition had taken care of that, but on something far more intoxicating, profit. Shoeshine boys were giving stock tips. Dentists were borrowing against their homes to buy shares in companies they could not spell. The newspapers ran daily stories about ordinary men who had become millionaires overnight. And in the middle of this frenzy, Roger Babson, a statistician and economist from Massachusetts, stood up at a business conference on September 5th, 1929, and said something that made people want to punch him in the mouth. He said a crash was coming. He said the market was going to fall, and it was going to fall hard, and that people should get out. Now, here is what happened next. They laughed at him. The financial press mocked him. The Wall Street Journal ran pieces calling his prediction irresponsible. Irving Fisher, the most famous economist in America at the time, a man from Yale, publicly declared that stock prices had reached a permanently high plateau. The crowd cheered for Fisher. They booed Babson. Babson was out of the loop. He was the buzzkill at the party, the designated driver nobody invited. He was not plugged into the excitement. He was not reading the ticker tape with trembling, greedy fingers. He was sitting in his office in Wellesley, Massachusetts, looking at cold numbers and saying no. Less than 2 months later, on October 29th, 1929, the market did not just crash. It fell off a cliff, caught fire on the way down, and then the cliff collapsed on top of it. The Dow Jones lost roughly 89% of its value over the next 3 years. Irving Fisher, the genius from Yale who called it a permanently high plateau, lost his entire fortune. He died in debt. Roger Babson, the man they laughed at, the man who was out of the loop, walked away with his wealth intact. But here is the part that keeps me up at night. Almost nobody followed Babson's advice, not because they did not hear it. They heard it loud and clear. They ignored it because following his advice meant stepping away from the crowd. It meant being the one person at the dinner party who was not talking about stocks. It meant enduring the smirks, the eye rolls, the quiet pity of people who thought you were a coward. The fear of missing out was louder than the fear of losing everything. And that, right there, is the trap. But Babson's story has a darker chapter, one that almost nobody talks about. In the years after the crash, as bread lines stretched around city blocks and men in three-piece suits sold apples on street corners, Babson received letters, hundreds of them, from people who had heard his warning and ignored it. A dentist from Chicago wrote that he had put his entire retirement into General Electric stock the week before the crash because his brother-in-law told him it was a sure thing. A school teacher from Ohio wrote that she had borrowed money from her mother to invest because the newspapers said the market would never go down. These were not greedy people. They were not stupid people. They were people who could not bear the social cost of being out of step with everyone around them. The dentist knew Babson had issued a warning. He read about it in the paper, but his brother-in-law was making money. His colleagues were making money. The barber who cut his hair was making money. And the pain of watching all of them celebrate while he sat on the sidelines was worse, in that moment, than the abstract risk of a crash that might never come. That is the part of this story that breaks my heart. The information was available. The warning was public. The problem was never a lack of knowledge. The problem was that being out of the loop felt like dying. Now, let me take you back even further, because this machine was not built in a day. After the crash of '29, after the Great Depression hollowed out America like a rotten tooth, something interesting happened. The people who ran the financial system, the bankers, the brokers, the ad men on Madison Avenue, they did not sit around feeling sorry. They went to work. They studied the crash. Not to prevent the next one, no. They studied it to understand why so many ordinary people had thrown their money into a burning building, and what they found was gold. They found that human beings are not rational creatures who sometimes act emotionally. They are emotional creatures who occasionally stumble into rationality. The research poured in through the 1930s and 40s, much of it funded by corporations who had a very specific question. How do we make people buy things they do not need, with money they do not have, to impress people they do not like? The answer came in the 1950s, wrapped in a television set and delivered to every living room in America. See, before television, your world was small. You compared yourself to your neighbor, your cousin, maybe the richest family in your town, and that was it. Your reference group, the people you measured your life against, was maybe 50 people, 100 at the most. Then the television arrived, and suddenly, you were not comparing yourself to the guy down the street anymore. You were comparing yourself to families on screen. Families with new cars and modern kitchens and wives in perfect dresses and husbands in suits who never seemed to sweat. The Joneses were no longer real people you could actually keep up with. The Joneses became a fiction, a moving target, a hologram that was always one step ahead of you no matter how fast you ran. And the advertising industry, which exploded in the 50s, understood this perfectly. They were not selling products. They were selling the fear of being left behind. Every commercial was the same message, wearing a different mask. Everyone else has this. Why don't you? That question, that poison, seeped into the American bloodstream so deeply that within one generation, consumer debt became normal. Carrying a balance on your credit card became as American as apple pie. Buying a house you could barely afford was not reckless. It was a responsible thing to do because real estate always goes up. Sound familiar? Let me show you how the machine works today, because it has evolved. It has gotten smarter, faster, and meaner. In the 1950s, the weapon was television. One screen, one direction, a handful of channels. You could turn it off. You could walk away. Today, the weapon is in your pocket. It sleeps next to you. It is the first thing you touch in the morning and the last thing you see at night. And it does not just show you polished advertisements anymore. It shows you real people, or what look like real people, living lives that make yours feel small. Social media did something that no propaganda machine in history has ever accomplished. It turned every single person into both a consumer and a broadcaster of envy. Think about what that means. In the old days, you needed a television network, a production studio, and millions of dollars to make someone feel inadequate. Now a 22-year-old with a ring light and a rented Lamborghini can do it from a bedroom in Miami. And the financial industry plugged directly into this. It is no accident that every brokerage app looks like a video game. It is no accident that Robinhood, the app that calls itself the democratizer of finance, uses confetti animations when you make a trade. Confetti. Like you just won something. Like buying a volatile stock on margin at its all-time high is a celebration that is not an accident. That is a design choice made by people who understand behavioral psychology better than most therapists. Here is how the cycle works. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Step 1. A new asset or trend emerges. Bitcoin, NFTs, meme stocks, AI companies, whatever the flavor of the month is. Step 2. Early adopters get in cheap and start making money. Step 3. The media picks up the story. Not the financial media, the regular media. Your local news, your morning talk shows, your uncle's Facebook feed. Step 4. And this is the critical phase. Regular people start seeing other regular people making money. Not hedge fund managers, not Wall Street traders. Regular people, their coworker, their barber, their kid's soccer coach. Step 5. The fear ignites. If my barber is making money and I am not, something is wrong with me. Step 6. The late money floods in. Regular people start buying at the top with money they cannot afford to lose because the pain of missing out has become physically unbearable. Step 7. The smart money, the early money. The people who got in during Step 2, they sell. They sell into the wave of late buyers. They convert the fear and excitement of millions of ordinary people into their own personal profit. Step 8. The crash. And when the dust settles, the wealth has not disappeared. It has simply moved. It moved from the pockets of people who were afraid of missing out into the pockets of people who were patient enough to be out of the loop. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the documented, studied, exposed mechanism by which financial markets have operated for over a century. It happened with railroad stocks in the 1800s. It happened with radio stocks in the 1920s. It happened with .com stocks in the late 1990s. It happened with housing in 2007. It happened with crypto in 2017 and again in 2021. The asset changes. The technology changes. The playbook never changes. And the playbook only works because of one ingredient: you. Specifically, your fear of being the one person who did not get in on time. Now, let me introduce you to the villain. And the villain is not who you think. It is not a banker in a glass tower. It is not a hedge fund manager lighting cigars with $100 bills. The villain is a chemical in your own brain called dopamine. And if you do not understand how dopamine works, you are bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. There was a researcher at Cambridge in the 1990s named Wolfram Schultz, who did an experiment with monkeys that should terrify you. He gave monkeys juice and measured their brain activity. At first, the dopamine spiked when the monkey got the juice. Simple, reward, pleasure, done. But after a few rounds, something changed. The dopamine stopped firing when the monkey received the juice. Instead, it started firing when the light turned on that signaled the juice was coming. The monkey's brain had shifted its entire reward system from the thing itself to the anticipation of the thing. And here is the sinister part. When the light turned on and no juice came, the dopamine did not just return to normal, it crashed below baseline. The monkey felt worse than if it had never seen the light at all. Read that again. The anticipation of a reward that does not arrive creates more pain than never expecting the reward in the first place. Now replace the monkey with you. Replace the juice with a stock tip. Replace the light with a push notification on your phone that says, "A stock you have been watching is up 15%. Your brain lights up. Not because you made money, you have not bought anything, but because the possibility of money is now alive in your mind. And if you do not act, if you do not buy, the dopamine crashes. You feel like you lost something you never had." Most people think dopamine is the pleasure chemical. They think it fires when you feel good. That is wrong. Dopamine does not reward you for getting what you want. Dopamine fires in anticipation of getting what you want. It is the chemical of wanting, not having. This is why the scroll is addictive. This is why you can spend 2 hours on your phone and not remember a single thing you saw. Your brain is not enjoying the content. It is chasing the possibility that the next post, the next swipe, the next notification will be the one that delivers the hit. And the financial industry has weaponized this. Every push notification from your trading app, every "this stock is trending" alert, every red and green number flashing on your screen, it is dopamine bait. It is designed to keep you in a state of wanting, of anticipation, of fear that you are about to miss the big one. And when you are in that state, you do not think clearly. You cannot think clearly. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that handles long-term planning and risk assessment, it goes quiet. And your amygdala, the ancient lizard part of your brain that only understands fight or flight, it takes the wheel. You are not investing anymore. You are reacting. You are an animal in a cage, pressing a lever because the light turned on. This is why the most dangerous moment in any market cycle is not the crash. It is the moment right before the crash, when everything feels amazing, when everyone around you is making money, when the only emotion you can feel is the terror of being left out. That is the moment the trap snaps shut, because by the time the fear of missing out has reached you, the ordinary person, the person who is not a professional trader, the person who heard about it from a coworker or a podcast, the big money has already been made. You are not early. You are the exit liquidity. You are the person the early investors sell to, and they need you to feel afraid. They need you to feel like you are running out of time, because your panic is their payday. So what is the escape? How do you fight a weapon that is built into your own biology, reinforced by every screen you own, and backed by $1 trillion industry that profits from your anxiety? The answer is so simple that it sounds almost stupid. And maybe that is why it works. You opt out. You go dark. You become, deliberately and strategically, the most uninformed person in the room when it comes to whatever the hot financial trend is this week. I am not talking about ignorance. I am not talking about burying your head in the sand and pretending money does not exist. I'm talking about building a financial life that does not require you to know what is happening in the market on any given Tuesday. The greatest investors in history, the ones who actually built lasting wealth, they were not glued to the ticker. Warren Buffett lives in Omaha, Nebraska, in the same house he bought in 1958. He does not use a Bloomberg terminal. He reads annual reports and eats at a steakhouse and goes to bed early. He is, by the standards of modern financial culture, completely out of the loop, and he is one of the richest people who has ever lived. That is not a coincidence. There is a study, and I want you to really sit with this, that looked at the best performing accounts at Fidelity, one of the largest brokerage firms in the world. The accounts that made the most money over long periods of time had one thing in common. The owners had either forgotten they had the account or they were dead. Let that sink in. Dead people outperformed active traders. People who literally could not check their portfolio, could not panic sell, could not FOMO buy. They won. They won because they were the ultimate out-of-the-loop investors. The market went up, they did not sell. The market went down, they did not sell. They just sat there, doing nothing. And the compounding did what compounding does when you leave it alone. The practical escape looks like this. You build a boring portfolio, index funds, maybe some bonds, automatic contributions from your paycheck every month. You set it up once, and then you do something that feels almost criminal in today's culture. You stop looking. You delete the apps. You unfollow the finance influencers. You mute the group chats where your friends are talking about the next big thing. You let yourself be the person at the barbecue who shrugs and says, "I do not really follow that stuff." And when you say it, people will look at you the way they looked at Roger Babson. They will think you are naive. They will think you are scared. They will pity you. Let them. Because the math is on your side. Exposed, studied, verified math that says the vast majority of active traders lose money. That the vast majority of people who chase hot trends buy high and sell low. That the average retail investor underperforms the market by roughly 4 percentage points per year simply because they cannot stop touching their portfolio. The real revolution is not a new app. It is not a new asset class. It is not a secret investment that they do not want you to know about. The real revolution is emotional. It is the ability to sit still while the world screams at you to move. It is the ability to watch other people, or what looks like other people, get rich and feel nothing. Not envy, not panic, nothing. That is the skill. That is the edge. And it is free. It costs you nothing except your addiction to the scroll, your need to feel included, and your terror of being the one person who did not hear about the next big thing. The system is designed to keep you hungry forever, checking your phone, refreshing your portfolio, comparing your net worth to strangers on the internet. And the exit is not a better strategy. The exit is refusing to be hungry. The exit is being full enough to close the laptop, full enough to go for a walk without checking your notifications, full enough to let the entire financial circus pass you by while your boring, automatic, untouched portfolio quietly does the only thing that has ever reliably built wealth in the history of money. It compounds slowly, silently, while you are not watching. That is the secret they do not put on magazine covers. The most powerful position in the entire financial system is not the person with the best information. It is the person who does not need it. The person who built their life so that no headline, no tweet, no screenshot of somebody else's gains can make them flinch. That person is not out of the loop because they are stupid. They're out of the loop because they figured out what the loop actually is. It is a trap. It always was. And the only way to win is to never step inside.